Hello, everybody. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, depending on where you're dialing in from. We're just kind of letting people in here, so we'll give us maybe about a minute or two, and then we will get started. Hello, good morning, good evening. Those of you that are just dialing in, we're still letting some folks in. I'm giving people another minute or two to join. Hopefully, you are here to talk about Copilot, in particular, boosting productivity with tips and tricks for use cases in teams. We'll give it maybe about one more minute or so, and then we will go ahead and get started. Thanks for joining us. All right. Good morning, good evening, everybody. I think we still got folks joining in, but we got a good amount of material to get through in just an hour. So I'm gonna go ahead and get started. So again, we are here to talk about boosting productivity with Teams and Copilot. We're going to have a combination of some material to share with you, some practical applications. We'll touch on some security, and then of course we're going to have some demos and use cases for you. Now, a little bit of housekeeping before we dive in regarding questions. So please ask questions as we go. You can interact through the chat. Logan from our team is here. He's going to be able to answer some of those questions for you directly in the chat. And then if there are questions that would require more of a discussion, we can bring you off of mute and allow you to verbalize those discussions. But net takeaway here, please don't save your questions to the end. I always feel that people that say, hey, save your questions for the end really mean we hope that you forget your questions. So please ask them as we go. But of course, we will also have some time at the tail end for any kind of final questions and thoughts before we leave. All right, so a quick round of introductions. I will start first by introducing myself. My name is Grant Stalley. I'm the Associate Vice President of Client Services here at iLink. I'm a ProC certified change management practitioner. I sit in Portland, Oregon, here on the west coast of the United States. I have the pleasure of being joined by Tonga. So Tonga, if you want to just take a moment, briefly introduce yourself.
Hey, sure thing. Yeah. So, good morning, good evening, everyone. This is Tangaraj, doing CTO for SIMS, which stands for Security and Infrastructure Managed Services Business Unit. Within iLink, joining Grant today, just talking about a few security items on the Copilot stuff.
Tonga always forgets to mention that he's a Microsoft MVP as well, so I will showboat for him a little bit.
Thank you, Grant.
Yeah, thank you. All right, so before we talk about our agenda, let's talk about why are we here. I think generative AI is something, even if we're trying to hide from it, it's finding us. It's around us. It's a hot topic. Organizations across industries are looking at it, and we're all at various stages of our journey, but we do recognize that it's going to impact the way that we work in the short term here. And Microsoft 365 Copilot really is a accessible and user-friendly generative AI for everybody. It's got practical applications for every role in the organization. I think many of us here, and I'm guessing the reason you've signed up for this event is that you are at least to use Teams some. So there's a lot of really great use cases there. But beyond that, a lot of different role types in the organizations are using Outlook. You're creating material in Word and PowerPoint. So you can find, additional value out of your M365 apps there. But beyond that, it's the ability to use the business chat and have it draw answers based on your work context. It's not just ChatGPT, it's ChatGPT, but with an understanding of the meetings that you've had, the files that you have shared on your OneDrive and SharePoint. So again, I think the short answer here is, why are we here? Because Copilot is AI for everybody. All right, so the agenda for the rest of the session today, we're going to start with just a brief overview of Microsoft 365 Copilot. I think when we've had these sessions in the past, we found we're getting a mix of folks that either, we're going to have some people here that their organization already has deployed some M365 Copilot. They're using it. They're just here to learn a little bit more about how they can use it better. And then we also find people that, hey, I've heard of Copilot. I don't really know a lot about it. So we'll kind of level set here, talk a little bit about what Copilot is. We'll also break down the differences between Copilot, the M365 Copilot, I should say, and Copilot Chat, which is more of the free version. So we'll kind of compare those. The Copilot Chat, the free version, came out in the market a few months back, and I think there's been a little bit of confusion there. I'll talk with people in my network, say, hey, do you use Copilot at work? They say yes. I'll ask them how you're using it, and I can tell by their answer that they're using, that free Copilot Chat and not the paid M365 Copilot. So we'll break down kind of, not in detail, but the key differences there. Then from there, we're going to have, Tonga's going to bless us with a little bit about the security and trust considerations as it comes to Copilot. This is not talking about the Copilot for security SKU or product. This is talking about security considerations as it relates to Copilot. Then we're going to talk a bit about where generative AI is in business and operations today, kind of, again, focusing on those core functions that most organizations would have. And that's only going to be about, these first 3 bullet points here will be maybe 20 minutes, 30 minutes at the most. The end of this presentation is really going to be talking about Teams specifically. So talking about how Copilot integrates with Teams, where you might be able to use it. We'll talk about what it can do there, and then we do have a variety of demos that we're going to show you, some really good early adoption use cases. So nothing very advanced. It's more of these, I've just gotten Copilot, I want to find use for it. We're going to show you some examples of those early adoption use cases. And then at the tail end here, we do have just some final closing thoughts, and we'll open the floor for any questions that you may have. But again, please do ask along the way as we go here today as well. All right, so we'll start out with a brief overview of what Microsoft 365 Copilot is. So what does it offer first? So first, it kind of offers really 3 key benefits. There's more to it than this, but I think in a simplistic way of looking at it, it's going to offer you intelligent assistance. So it is, many of us have used ChatGPT or similar products that you might be asking it to take information from the web, consolidate that down into an answer, rather than, an example might be, instead of searching the internet and saying, I want a chicken teriyaki recipe, you might ask something like a ChatGPT, and instead of it searching the internet for other people that have posted, ingredients and steps, it's going to create those ingredients and steps for you based on what it finds on the web. So that Copilot's going to bring you that same thing. So it's going to assist you in a lot of tasks, and it's not going to take over these tasks for you, but it will assist you in things like writing, summarizing, collaborating with others through integration with pages, and enhancing your productivity and efficiencies. Another big piece is design efficiency. So not just creating new content, but making your content look and feel better. So it can offer you different ways to enhance your visualizations and create appealing and professional looking presentations in a much quicker fashion. Again, those design improvements really a key benefit. The last piece, and this is where M365 Copilot really differentiates itself, is it's going to integrate with the tools that you're using every day. So many of us are Outlook users, or we have an email platform. You can use it right there. It can help you summarize emails, help you write emails, help you organize your mailbox, offer you tips and suggestions. I've even had it change an email and write it as if it was written by a poem that's written by a pirate. You can do all sorts of crazy stuff there. Now, what are the benefits of all of this? First, I think the obvious answer is time saving. So Copilot's really going to help you with especially doing the first draft. An example might be you're looking to build a project plan. You're not really quite sure where to get started. You can have Copilot build you out like a layout for a project plan in IT services, or you could have it build in certain sections for you, add to this material. So really, again, time savings, especially in taking that first draft. The content quality, a thing that I'm doing a lot is I might write out, like if again, we'll use our project plan example here. I'm working on a section of it. I might just kind of quickly type out my thoughts for this and then ask Copilot to kind of take my thoughts and enhance it so it quickly sounds professional and clean. I'm no longer having to take the time to, think that through and kind of take the time to edit it down myself. I can use Copilot to help me with at least that first editorial pass. And then enhancing collaboration, I think with, Teams is naturally a collaboration tool, and Copilot is going to make those uses easier. But beyond that, Copilot can help you with, sharing the thoughts and ideas. So I might be using the Copilot chat to brainstorm ideas for a new product. Now that I've got those ideas, I want to share it out with the rest of the team. There is an easy way in Copilot chat to just integrate it into a page, which if you don't use pages, it's basically like an online version of OneNote, but you can integrate your notes in there quickly, add people in quickly, add comments, things like that, at very, very easily. So again, Copilot can help you with that collaboration piece. So just to kind of hammer home this point one last time here, before we talk about the differences between M365 Copilot and Copilot Chat. Again, Copilot's integrated with the tools you're using. So these are obviously the big five, but there are, certainly other Office apps that many of us do use, like Visio, OneNote, things like that also have Copilot. But, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, Outlook, and Teams, it's, generative AI that's right there in those tools you're using. You're not having to go to the web or go to a different site or like a ChatGPT to then ask it a question and then copy that information back into your, let's say your Outlook. You can use M365 Copilot right there in your Outlook. And it understands your work context. So it's going to use Microsoft Graph to integrate with files that are saved on your OneDrives and your SharePoints. It also will access, if you've recorded your Teams meetings or at least had transcription turned on, it can grab information from there. And it can also grab information from your Outlook, from your mailbox. So it's, again, going to integrate with your work data. And it can extend your business data. There's already over 1,400 pre-built connectors. iLink does offer some additional, value beyond just those 1,400, but, it can integrate with other business apps. It's not just going to be your Office apps. You can really customize it and make it your own with agents. There are pre-built agents that, are kind of covering common scenarios that, a business or an enterprise might see. But with Copilot Studio, you can really customize and build your own agents for, things that really work for just you. The enterprise-grade security, this is something Tonga is going to touch on in a moment, so I won't go too deep into here, but the net of the whole thing is that Copilot is not going to create new security concerns for you. And then lastly, the measuring of the impact. So I think a lot of leadership are reporting with companies that are early in their AI journey that they don't really understand how to quantify the impact of it. With Copilot, there's some really easy out-of-the-box dashboards and tools for your IT admin teams to go in and see who's using Copilot, how much are they using it, and where are they using it. Okay, so many of you have probably heard of Copilot Chat. This is a new product that came out in the marketplace. I want to say probably sometime in early February or sometime near the start of the year. This is essentially a free version of Copilot. So this is available to everybody. The M365 Copilot or the Microsoft 365 Copilot, that is what is in scope for the rest of the discussion here today. So just want to quickly break down the differences between the features between these two. So the first is the price. So the Copilot Chat is going to be available for everybody. There are certain things that are going to be on a pay-as-you-go model, or you may need to buy message packs for them. But the Microsoft 365 Copilot is $30 per user per month on an annual subscription. So there's one difference there, the price point. Now, the other thing that you'll see here is if we look at this second to the top line here is the work grounded versus web grounded. So in both products, you can use web grounded information. So if you're asking it to, give you information that's publicly available on the internet, both products can do that for you. Now, if you are asking it to ground it in your work information, that's only going to be available through the M365 Copilot or the paid product here. So an example might be I'm preparing for a meeting, a QBR that's upcoming with a customer. If I wanted to just ask some background information on the customer, like what's their revenue and headcount, I can ask the free version of Copilot that, and it might look on their LinkedIn or their company website or news articles, and it will find that information for me. But if I also wanted to ask it, what were the topics that we covered in the last QBR, that's only going to be available through the M365 Copilot. So that's one of the big differences. The second big difference here is going to be in this section right here that you see, where you see a whole lot of blanks under Copilot Chat and a whole lot of check marks or circles under the M365 Copilot, and that is the integration directly into these apps. So it's, the Copilot will interact directly in those, Teams, Outlook, Word, Excel, PowerPoint, all of those products. So if I wanted to write a blog article on the history of hot sauces in America as a random example, I could use the free version of Copilot, the chat, get a response from it, provide it some coaching, and then I would have to copy and paste that information into Word. With M365 Copilot, I can have that whole experience directly in Word, no need to copy or paste or go back and forth. All right, so that was a quick crash course on Microsoft 365 Copilot. I want to turn it over to Tonga here to cover briefly the security and trust considerations.
Sure thing. Thank you, Grant. So this slide, what we're talking about is everybody we are talking about AI, Copilot, and data at rest, data transit, so many things we are talking about, right? Automation, things like that, right? So, but what about the security of those data? When I say data, it could be simply your email or your Teams or OneDrive or any data that's undergoing with the Copilot feature, right? There are standalone Copilot feature and there are embedded Copilot feature. So either of those Copilot feature, when we are using it, always this question comes into play: what about the security of it, right? So Microsoft is promising they are not using your data for training their system, right? That's number one. And then your data is going to be sitting inside your tenant wherever it is, and it's not going to be transmitted or migrated to any other tenant or any other destination for training purpose or any other purpose, right? So those are some of the commitments that we are seeing from Microsoft. On top of that, the existing security that we have in your environment, your platform, could be your endpoints, your laptops, or your tenant level on the Azure side, right? So those existing security settings are going to be implemented. For example, if you have a conditional access policy, if you have an MFA or multi-factor authentication, right? Maybe if you have a role-based access controls like RBAC, if you have a network protocol, network segregation, so all of those existing security settings is going to be implemented whenever you are using Copilot. So that's a great thing. And number two, like you see in the slide, governance and compliances. So when we talk about Copilot for security, any governance and compliances that you already have in your organization, Copilot can also integrate to those policies. Specifically, let's say ISO 27001, PCI, HIPAA, or GDPR. I'm just calling out few, right? So things like that. So any kind of compliances your company is going through, the Copilot for security or the M365 Copilot can also integrate to that, keeping in mind those governance policies that you already have in your company. So overall, you control the data in terms of the data security, who has access to what kind of data you have in your environment, right? So those are the things that's completely under your control. And even the network segregation, firewall policies. So those are the things will be implemented and augmented with Copilot, M365 Copilot security features. And I can take any specific questions if you have. But on a high level, the enterprise data protection predominantly talking about like encryption or the compliances level that we talked about, ISO or GDPR, identity and access management in terms of any kind of tools that you might have, probably Azure Single Sign-On or Azure IAM, Identity and Access Management Systems, including your retention policies, your audit logs. So all those things in terms of enterprise data protection is also considered and implemented when you think about M365 Copilot. So your data is not used to train any models from Microsoft, and the AI security risk will be taken care when we are talking about M365 Copilot.
Awesome. Thank you, Tonga. And if folks have questions, please do. Now's a great time for them. We'll try to cover what we can in the chat, and others we will go ahead and have you come off of mute. I think, the two biggest things, like when I talk with people in my network that, their organization doesn't have Copilot, if they're in, any kind of a leadership position, I'm always going to ask, why not? And I think there's the two big security concerns that come up are, one is, I don't want like if I'm asking it, strategically related questions about my business, I don't want Copilot to have access to that. And as Tonga just went over, it doesn't. It's going to stay right there in your tenant. The other concern that I will get is, hey, I don't want, because of Copilot, have some, let's say a junior financial analyst all of a sudden, ask Copilot a question. Now it gets access to salary information for my entire organization. And that won't happen either. So, Copilot's going to inherit whatever permissions you already had in place. So as an example, if we take that junior analyst, example once again, if that person did not have access to your salary data, if it's, I don't know why you would do this, but let's say it was stored in an Excel file. If they don't have access to the file, Copilot's going to pretend the file doesn't exist. So it will give them answers as if that file never existed. Now, I mentioned earlier that Copilot can help expose security concerns that you maybe already had. So if in this example, that file was not set up the right way and that user actually, the junior analyst, did have access because maybe it was made available to everyone in the organization from an access perspective, pre-Copilot, that junior analyst probably never stumbles across it because they don't know where that file is located. They're not trying to search for it. It would have had to have accidentally stumbled across it through File Explorer, and that wouldn't be likely to happen. Now with Copilot, since the user does have, technically speaking, does have access to that file, it may give responses based on that file. So that's where I mentioned it's not going to create new security considerations or access concerns, but it may expose ones that you already had. All right, so before we get into our demos and talk specifically about Teams, I do want to take a moment to touch on generative AI in the workplace in general. As we mentioned, Copilot's helping people do more and do more faster. So a couple of key points as it pertains specifically to Teams. Now this is based on early user reporting that Microsoft has some stats and metrics on, adoption of Copilot. What they're reporting is that people are getting caught up on missed meetings 4 times faster with Copilot. So long as you have the transcription turned on, you can get caught up quickly with a summary. You can even use Copilot as a Q&A to ask if, was this topic discussed? Were there any action items for me? All of that can be done quickly and easily with Copilot for those missed meetings. They're also, I didn't include it here, but they're also reporting that people with Copilot licenses are actually attending less meetings on a weekly basis because they can rely on this technology to help them get caught up when if they're not really a contributor to the meeting, but more were invited for information purposes only. Another point here, just talking about daily efficiency. So I know we're focusing on Teams here today, but Teams adjacent would be Outlook here. So Copilot is saying, again, Microsoft is saying that Copilot saving users 40% of time with managing their email. Now this could be summarizing emails, could be catching up on missed emails, or even helping generate responses. But we're also finding that scheduling meetings is 25% quicker with Copilot, prioritizing tasks 35% faster, and drafting responses 30% faster. So seeing varying levels of improvement, but certainly improvement across the board with these, regular tasks that we're all doing. Okay, final point here. So the AI transformation in the business, what we're not finding is that it's currently not replacing people's jobs. So I think a lot of times, when at a like first line worker or entry level employee, or kind of the individual contributor, when they hear generative AI, they're going to start to think that, hey, a machine is coming for my job. But that's not been the reality thus far. What's happening instead is that tools like Copilot are helping those employees to get through those mundane or repetitive tasks faster and get more time to focus on upskilling themselves or new value adds to the business, the additional pieces that are always going to require, a human. So that's, one key point here. But it's, where does Copilot play into the picture? And in particular, Copilot with generative AI as a whole, it's accelerating your productivity and creativity. We already talked about some of the time savings. We're going to show you a few of those coming up in a moment. It's going to help you maximize the value that you've already made, or the purchase you've already made with either M365 or Office 365. By, there's new things you can do. You're going to see an increased usage of those products that you've already paid for. And again, like I just was mentioning, it allows people to focus less on repetitive and mundane tasks and more time on things that really help you move the needle with your business. Efficiency in your business processes. So you're going to see a lot of operational efficiency that's going to increase. The increase in revenue here is more related to the efficiencies that you can see in your sales teams and your marketing functions as a result of using Copilot. And honestly, like for most people, the people that are using Copilot actually saves you money, doesn't cost you money, just in the sense if you start doing the calculations based on the amount of time you're getting back. And as Tonga, walked us through, we're always in control of our data with Copilot, and it's easy to manage. All right, so let's talk about teams. So the way this is going to work is I'm going to talk to you a little bit about some theoretical things and where it works and how it works. And then we're going to spend more of our time from here in our demo portion. So it's going to integrate with Teams and meeting chat. Teams meetings and chat. So both of those are going to be there. Now with Teams, you do have to have transcription at least turned on, or recording. So if it's not listening, it's not going to give you any feedback. So you do have to have those enabled. You certainly can still use this in in-person meetings as well, so long as you have a Teams device that's joined in and can hear the people that are in the room. You certainly can still use all the summarization that we're going to see in a moment. But again, for now, it does have to have the transcription at least turned on. They have announced that there is something in preview that it would allow Copilot to work without transcription and recording. So maybe stay tuned in the coming months for more news from Microsoft on that. But as of now, big takeaway here: got to have the transcription at least turned on. It's also going to integrate well with your chat. So we are going to show a chat use case for here, but common scenarios where you may be you're out on vacation for a week, you come back, there's been a Teams chat about some topic, and prior to Copilot, you're going to have to sit there and skim through that whole thing. Even if you do that, you're spending a lot of time, and since you're skimming, you're probably going to miss some key points, or maybe you just don't catch up at all, and you're hoping that there wasn't anything important that was discussed. But now with Copilot, you can really quickly get caught up. You can ask questions, see if specific topics were discussed, so you don't have to skim through that whole long thread back and forth. Also very helpful if you've got a globally dispersed team where you might have some team members that are interacting in a time where you're typically sleeping or away from your machine. You can get quickly caught up with Copilot. So what are some use cases? So you might want to ask for key highlights from a chat. So as an example here, we're going to use our favorite lady, Maya, here. So Maya, she's been on vacation for last week. She's returning to the office. She's got a Teams chat that she needs to catch up on. So she's going to ask Copilot to summarize the last week of the chat. You can be specific, specific prompts get you specific answers. So she says that time frame. This way it doesn't go back and ask for everything. It just goes for the time she was looking for. Now you can also, as I mentioned earlier, Maya could use it for specific questions about the chat. So maybe she doesn't want to go through all those old messages. She doesn't have the time. She's running to the next meeting. but she wants to know one important thing. So she's going to ask Copilot, in this chat, hey, what changes does Laura want to make to the proposal? So she can see, very specifically rather than having to ask for a big summary and then scroll to that point. Now, within meetings, really, really helpful in Teams meetings. So you can get caught up quickly with a missed meeting if it was transcribed or recorded, rather than, watching the recording, maybe skipping ahead a little bit here and there, trying to find the material you wanted. You can ask Copilot to summarize the meeting for you. You can ask it for action items. You can, similar to that chat example we were just talking about, you could ask specific questions if topics were discussed. And then if you are, maybe an organization where you're typically are sharing meeting notes as a result of a meeting, you're either going to have somebody that's only half paying attention to the meeting because they also have to focus on taking notes, or you're inviting somebody that's maybe more junior to the meeting and they're going to have to take time out of their day to be a part of it, just to, maybe they're not contributing, but they are dedicated to taking notes. So now with Copilot, it's going to create that summary for you, and we'll show you an example of that in just a moment here. All right, so with that, I do have a few demos to share. We are going to start first with a Teams chat experience. So let me just give me one moment here to go up in here to this example. So this is an example of a chat that we used for demo purposes. So in Copilot, I am seeing that this is a chat where we had a hot topic at our company. So we're discussing ordering of snacks for the next month. So we're getting ready to pull the trigger on our next order. We've got a lot of people that are passionate either about nutritional choices or maybe the opposite of nutritional choices, and we've got a chat going to decide what we want to have before we make the order. So we'll take, maybe I was on vacation just like Maya, so I'm getting caught back up, and I don't want to, spend the time to dig back through this whole thing. So what I'm going to do is just open up the Copilot icon, and since I am a Microsoft 365 Copilot licensed user, I have this icon right here. So I'll go ahead and click on that. And now I might ask it something to, maybe I want to say, summarize this chat. Nice and simple example for us here. So what Copilot is going to do is it's going to look back through the chat. It's going to take itself a moment to think, and it will provide me with a summary. And I'm going to see it as it starts. So it's going to tell me that Jeff initiated this discussion. He asked for feedback by July 9th. Logan has suggested, he wants more cookies, it looks like. I agreed with the cookie suggestion and pros sparkling water. So it's going to kind of give me a summary of this extensive chat. The other nice piece that you're going to see here, and this is true with any Copilot experience, but you'll notice that there's these numbers and boxes here. So with these, this is going to refer you directly to that spot. So let's say, this chat happened a long time ago. We can see the date range, July of 2024. So maybe I want to find out, okay, I agreed with this cookie suggestion and proposed adding sparkling water. Maybe I don't remember discussing that. So what I can do is I can just click on this icon button here, and it takes me right to where I said it. And you saw, maybe you did, maybe you didn't, but there was a red box that outlined this. So it's saying, this is where I made that discussion. Now, if you're going to use Copilot Chat, ask it for web-based information, it's going to do the same thing. It's going to right next to its statement, it's going to put a number in here. You can click on that, and that'll take you to the public URL of where it pulled that information. Or if I was asking it, hey, tell me what's the latest, or tell me, what were the action items that came out of my last one-on-one meeting with Logan, it can, pull those action items for me. And then if it was, let's say it was in an email or maybe meeting notes that were shared, it will have that number icon. I can click on it. It'll pop up the file or the email for me that it's referring to. All right, so maybe besides just the summary is helpful, but maybe I have some specific questions. So I want to know, were there any action items for me? So now I want to know specifically for me, is there anything I missed, anything that I owe the team that they're waiting for me on? It says, nope, there were no specific action items for me, so that's great. Now, maybe I want to know, I want to get right to the point. Like, I don't care if we increased or decreased quantities of existing menu choices, but maybe I want to say, what new food items were suggested? I just want to know, okay, what are the new ideas? What are some of the new snacks that I might be seeing at the office? So it's going to say that, it's again summarizing for me where it found what time range it found the conversation, and it says, here were the new food items that were suggested. Looks like we're getting cookies, sparkling water, fruits, nuts, quite a variety here from a nutritional perspective, but and we've got some gluten-free options, including Oreos here, which is great. All right, so this is a quick example. It's not a robust chat, so I'm not going to get quite the bang for the buck out of it that I might for a longer, more realistic chat, but kind of shows you a bit some of the options and the art of the possible here. Now, the other thing I do want to show is the meeting experience. So I'm going to give you a couple of examples here. And the first one, I'm going to scroll back to an old meeting that we did, again, for the purposes of a demo. All right, now I had transcription turned on. In fact, I had it recorded. You can see that recording here. Now this details section with the recording and transcription, this is going to be available to you as long as it was, recorded, regardless of your licensing position with Copilot. Now, what I will see that is going to be different for me is this recap section. So it's going to have this AI summary for me here. Now, if people were taking notes during the meeting, those will be here. That's the same as with any licensed user. This AI summary is what will be different. So I can see the meeting notes here. So it's going to tell me what was discussed. So in this one, we were discussing team building activities. So employee satisfaction, employee engagement activities. So it's going to give me a fairly lengthy, description here. So I can see that it's got high-level bullet points already here. If I want to click down a level deeper and get more details, it's going to also break that down for me in these sub-bullet points. It's also going to have down here follow-up tasks. So these are the action items that are all important. I think that we've all been there before, where you're in a Teams meeting, you agree on some really, really good ideas, and then all of a sudden you guys drop and everybody goes to 3 or 4 more meetings in a row, and you've completely forgotten about the action items you agreed upon and discussed. And now 2 weeks go by, somebody follows up with you, says, hey, you'd committed to me to get me this document, I'm still waiting for it, and you're like, I don't remember even discussing that. I think we've all had that happen. We've been on both, I can imagine that we've all been on both sides of the aisle with that. This is where Copilot can really, really help you out. Again, if you don't, without having to dedicate a member to either pay half attention and take notes, or bring somebody else in that's going to, basically just be there to take notes. Now with Copilot, it's going to help you track those action items. What you'll see is that it will capture those in these parentheses. It's going to show me the name of the person who it believes should be tagged for the action item. So this is really good stuff. I can just, let's say I want to send this out as a productive meeting. I want to send an email out to all the attendees because maybe not everybody has a M365 Copilot license. So what I can do is just click this copy all and it'll take it down. Now, what I might do, and I will go ahead and show you this example here. So I've copied this all to my clipboard. Now, let's say I'm going to use this. I'll stick with my example. I'm sending out an email to everybody that attended with these meeting notes. So give me just a moment, and I'm going to pull open a blank email for us. Now, what I can do is I can just go ahead and just paste in those notes. Sure enough, easy peasy. It included the sub-bullet points for me. Now, what I would not encourage you to do is just click send on this email once you put in everybody in the to line. You're going to want to read through this because few reasons. One is with any AI, you want to make sure that you're using it as an assistant, but not taking over your job. So you're going to want to read through it, make sure it's captured things correctly. It doesn't misrepresent anything because while it is grounded in your work context, it's only grounded in work context you have access to. So if there was something that was discussed, at a water cooler type of conversation or in a meeting that wasn't recorded, not going to have it in here. So you might need to add that context. You may also want to shorten it out, which, we can even just use Copilot to do that even. I may want to say, I can go right here, click this Copilot icon for me and say, make it shorter. And it can help me consolidate those notes for me. If I just think, hey, I'm sending this out to a bunch of executives, this looks way too long. So it shortened it up for me quite a bit. And there we go. The other thing that you're going to want to do is read through the action items, because sometimes, like if you maybe we discuss, let's take, for example, this virtual cooking challenge. Maybe we talk about this virtual cooking challenge at the beginning, and then we go to a few other topics, and then we revisit that cookie challenge or the cooking challenge. Sorry, I got cookies on my mind all of a sudden, but we go back to this topic, revisit it, discuss it some more. It may capture that action item twice, so you might want to look for that. The other thing very common can happen is, you get, let's say, this budget clarification. So it looks like from here I'm supposed to follow up with Sharon to determine which budget the client event and LinkedIn ad expenses should come from. So in this case, I might want to, I've already followed up with Sharon. So maybe I've sent her a Teams message. She quickly responded to me, gave me the answers I needed. This is really no longer an action item, so I can go ahead and just, remove it. And now that it is here, I can't edit these notes directly in Stream or in Teams like I was just doing. But once I'm, taking them into my other forums, whether it's OneNote for myself or with, an email like we're doing here, this is where I can really edit those points. The other thing that I like to do as a best practice is I'll actually take these follow-up tasks and put them in like a table format, with the first column being the person's name, the second column being the action item, because it does bury the name back here at the very end. You can bold it and underline it or highlight it or something to make it more clearer. But I think putting it at the beginning is a little bit easier for folks that might want to skim through this and just quickly look for the action items that they are owed. So this is summarizing meetings. Now, the other thing that I might want to do here is use Copilot to ask questions. So instead of just saying like, okay, the summary is great, I might want to know some stuff about the meeting. So give me just one moment to shuffle a few things around here. Okay, so maybe I want to know, this call happened, I see the summary, I'm all caught up on it, but maybe I know, okay, the trivia proposal, like maybe I know that Logan and Gory were, had argued about this before in the past, and there's been some disagreement. So I just want to make sure as a manager, make sure everybody was cordial about it. So I can just say, was anybody rude during the meeting? And you can see I've asked it this question before, but it was probably going to tell me no. Yeah, so this is one. It is AI. It's your intelligent assistant, so it can give you different answers from time to time. Just to give you a little bit of behind the scenes here, when we set up this mock meeting for demo purposes, I did try to be a little bit harsh or rude to Logan during the meeting just to see if it would capture this. It was one of the more awkward and uncomfortable experiences in my lifetime. And so I wasn't probably as harsh as, you might have seen in some of your other meetings. But so sometimes it tells me, yes, you were. Sometimes it tells me not. But so it's telling me here that I made some critical remarks about Logan's idea. So some coaching tips for me there. The other thing I might want to do is list any action items. So I can see that in the summary, but if I didn't want to read through this whole summary and dig through all of the action items, the follow-up tasks, then I might want to just do it right here, and it's going to give me a quick response there. Now, maybe I'm consumed this information. I'm not really sure exactly how I should take all this. So there might be some tips for me here. So maybe I want to say suggest follow-up questions. So maybe I'm like, okay, this is good. Is there any, I can see what the action items are clearly called out for me here by Copilot, but what else do I need to know? So it might, suggest for me some follow-up questions. So these are questions that I can ask Gory about the virtual cooking challenge, some questions I could ask Logan about happy hour trivia. So kind of giving me some coaching on the next steps here. Really good tool, really helpful in providing meeting notes and making sure that, all the good stuff you talk about and agree upon in a meeting is not lost and forgotten forever. But in addition to that, it allows you to miss meetings a little easier, especially those where you're not an active participant, but more there for visibility or maybe contributing just one or two things. You can quickly catch up. Another really big use case that I don't think people really think of at the time of making the decision to move forward with Copilot is people that run late to a meeting. So if you have somebody that is a critical member of the meeting, you've only got a half hour or 25-minute meeting scheduled, somebody runs 5 minutes late. It happens. Stuck in traffic, previous meeting ran long, could be a myriad of reasons. You used to have to stop and catch that person up if you'd already started. So you're going to, not only now are you 5 minutes behind schedule, but now you're taking another 2 minutes to explain to Gary, who showed up late, what he's missed and what's been discussed, so he can catch up and quickly be part of the conversation. So now you're 7 minutes behind in a 25-minute meeting. Probably not going to have time to get through what you needed to, certainly not in any kind of an efficient manner. With Copilot, Gary runs late to the meeting. Now Gary, he's 5 minutes in, can shoot a quick Teams message, hey, everybody, sorry I'm late. And then he can use Copilot, since current transcription was turned on, to say, what have I missed? Was my name mentioned? Are there any action items for me? Was this topic, maybe Gary was only there to discuss the architecture plans for a new branch. He might ask it, was this topic discussed yet? So he knows, hey, I'm only here for one topic. Was it discussed yet? Yes or no? So again, really helpful for those that are running late without having to sacrifice, the rest of the audience's time to catch that person up. So these are a few examples of how you can use Copilot in Teams. Another use case that we're not going to go through today, but is a helpful one, is in scheduling meetings. So we've all been part of the email thread that turns into a meeting, where you've got a lot of back and forth. There's not a decision made, and you decide, you know what, be a heck of a lot easier if we just discuss this on a call. Copilot and Outlook can help you easily schedule those meetings. Now, you've always had that schedule a meeting option with Outlook, where you can take that email thread, click schedule a meeting, and it pulls up a calendar invite for you. The value that Copilot will bring is it's going to, based on the conversation, it's going to suggest an agenda for you for the meeting. It's going to provide you with a summary of what's been discussed so far, and it's going to, pull in the email as an attachment. And then the other piece that it'll do is it's going to have everybody that's in the to line will end up as required in the meeting invite. Everyone in the CC is going to end up in there as optional by default. You can change that. But then it's also going to pick for you a suggested meeting time. So it's going to find the next time that everybody is available according to their Outlook calendar. So kind of a Teams adjacent use case, but really helpful there. All right, so a couple of points here before we close. Implementing Copilot is critical. The way that you go about it is very important, because all of these use cases are only helpful for your organization if people use them. If Copilot is not being used, then it brings you no value. It's just a cost center for you. So what are the important considerations? First is you have to make sure that you're checking all three of these boxes here in the middle under this Copilot Essentials checklist. So sponsor. One of my favorite topics to lecture on is the importance of an executive sponsor in any change initiative. Couldn't be any more important here than it is in Copilot. So you have to make sure that you have an executive sponsor that's lined up and is enthusiastic and ready to support your journey with Copilot. If you have questions on what exactly an executive sponsor is, I'm happy to set up 15, 30 minutes with you as a follow-up. We can show you how you can contact us momentarily. You also want to identify scenarios. So I've talked about some really good scenarios that everybody can use, but there's a lot of different activities you can do to identify scenarios that fit your needs and specific to your organization and how your folks operate. And you're going to want to have some of those lined up to drive adoption. And then the other piece is the security consideration. So you want to make sure your security posture is good when you get started, so you don't expose a lot of mistakenly expose people to the wrong stuff. Then enablement falls under two key categories. So user enablement first. So this is making sure that people know how to use it. If you don't teach prompting to people, that is a bit of an art. They're gonna struggle with it. So you have to make sure that they know how to use the tool and make sure they're aware of its features and functions. The other piece is the technical readiness. So you got to make sure that your technical deployments, your governance, security considerations, compliance, all of that stuff is in good place before you get started. Now, before we close, a few quick shameless plugs. iLink Digital, we are a Copilot Microsoft Jumpstart ready tier partner. We have a variety of services that support every stage of your Copilot journey, whether that's in wondering what AI is and how we get started with it, or if you're getting ready to deploy and you need some support to make sure that you're deploying in the right way. We do provide an extensive amount of adoption and change management support to help make sure that you do cover that user enablement piece and can get the most out of your $30 per user per month. And then, of course, as an IT services company, we do have an expertise in building custom agents using Copilot Studio, to connect to, your other apps that you're using. We'll share just a quick overview of exactly what those services are, in particular with adoption and change management. So we offer promptathons, which are essentially guided ways for users to discover those use cases. We do have instructional material that we can offer you, LMS courses. We do change management consulting, role-based training for employees. So this is, not just generic like we went through today, but specifically how does Copilot work for HR? How does Copilot work for marketing? Things like that. We do have a readiness assessment that we can run you through to help you understand what are your strengths, what are going to be some areas you need to focus on before you deploy with Copilot. And then we do have some good workshop offers and opportunities. Some of these do have Microsoft funding for eligible customers, but we do have a variety of offers and opportunities for you there if you're just getting started or thinking about getting started soon. All right, so with that brings me to the end of the material I had for you here today. I do want to stick around here for any questions that you have. If you would like to get access to the material here, like the slide, if you want the slides, I'm happy to share them with you. Please do go ahead and just scan this QR code that you're seeing in the lower right. Also, if you have questions for me, maybe you want to understand a potential use case at your organization a little bit better, or you're interested in learning a little bit more about what iLink can bring to the table to help you in your Copilot journeys, please also scan this QR code. We can capture your contact information there. But with that, I will open the floor to any questions that we have at this time. Any questions, anybody? Either I was very clear or you guys are all sleeping. So again, please do bring your questions if you have them. All right. Well, if there are no questions, I'll stick around for another Oh, yep, I do see one. Okay. Okay, yeah. So the question here was, for those of you maybe on a phone or something, so question in the chat was, tried using Copilot Pro, but it said I had to have a personal account. Is that correct? So Copilot Pro is the personal version of M365 Copilot. So M365 Copilot is for organizations, enterprises, businesses, for them to ground their responses with work data. Now, if you have the desire to, and I think this is, when Microsoft had first announced that Copilot was coming and had a sneak preview, one of the examples they showed is a mom who was planning a birthday party for, a child, and she was putting out like some invites, like creating some invites for this child's birthday party. That type of experience where you want it to, I still want to use Copilot in Outlook or in my like Word, PowerPoint, stuff like that, but more for personal use. I don't need it. It's not grounding in work data. It's personal use. That is still available to you through Copilot Pro. So that's going to require a personal account. Again, Copilot in the business or the enterprise is Microsoft 365 Copilot. So good question. That is something that you're not the first person to ask that question, so a good one there. All right, I haven't seen any others roll in. I will go ahead. I'm going to stick around for a couple more minutes in case anybody does have any other questions. Again, can't stress this enough. Please do reach out to us if you have questions that you didn't feel comfortable asking in front of the rest of the audience here today. Scan that QR code. We'll get your contact info. I'll reach out to you and we can set up some time to answer any questions or concerns you may have. But with that, I want to thank, if those of you who want to drop off, I want to thank you again for taking the time to listen today. I hope that you found at least one or two helpful and useful tips for you and your Copilot journey. So thanks for joining us.
Thank you, Graham. Thank you, everyone.
Thank you. Thanks, Tonga.